there's a lot of vacancies. I did a video about this yesterday, and a lot of them are interviewing the same people. So I'm very curious to then what organizations do when it's just going to come down to tossing money at a situation of being like, hey, let's try to pull some folks over here. Because I had the pleasure of being in the live chat for the Jaguars press conference with Trent Baalke. They had Khan on there as well, and it was a disaster. They had that chat public. Oh, the clown emotes that were flying.
I think that might have set a record for most clown emojis ever used on YouTube.
But the answers were awful. Because, like, again, shout out. They don't get a ton of shout outs, but shout out for them doing that. And, like, you know, saying, all right, we're going to take some questions here. Though the questions had to have been asked beforehand because there was a few reporters that got skipped because the question had already been asked because that was said a couple times. But ultimately, like, they were talking about firing Trent Baalke as Trent Baalke was there. He was just sitting there kind of just like chilling. And some reporters did ask, like, hey, was there a thought of like getting rid of the GM? And like, do you think it's going to limit the amount of folks that you can bring in and candidates you can bring in because you currently have the GM? And there was one question that was asked about if a head coach came in and suggested changes to the front office, especially GM, would that be listened to? And he's like, yeah, I'd listen to them if they put together some good points. I'm like, what? Well, first of all, your GM is sitting right there, right? Which just makes it more comical. But two, if you could be persuaded by a person who's not in the building as a head coach candidate coming in and going, you know what? I think the way that I'm going to be successful is if this guy gets fired, and you go, that sounds like a great idea. And you can't evaluate that for yourself. Like, I understand that they got head coaches, they got GMs answering to Khan directly. But my friends, like, it's not resulting in anything good. Trent Baalke, I swear, I don't know how that man still has a job. And I feel for Jaguars fans because as we talk about, you know, usually it's easier to fire head coaches. It's easier to get rid of GMs. It's the owners that are the problem here. I think you got a bit of a both problem right now in which like Khan is very committed to Jacksonville and to the city. And that, like, just seeing that during 30 and 30 of like, hey, we're going to be here, that I respected because there was a time, especially from outside media, that was like, oh man, they're going to London. They're going to be gone. But they are committed to building infrastructure. And there's plenty of things that you can point out about that are problematic. But I think of just the gesture of, hey, want to stay in Jacksonville, infrastructure's there, going to renovate the stadium. Great, wonderful. Yeah. But holy crap, the day-to-day football operations, like, I feel like you need to take a big step back. You need to hire a GM that knows what the hell they're doing. And you need to get a head coach that is going to be hired by that GM. And you need to kind of be just hands off. Yeah. Because being directly involved in those football operations, and there's plenty of owners that do that around the league, it is not working out for a bunch of them.
Yeah. I talked to a Jags fan last week, somebody who actually worked for him, and he said, my fear is that Shad Khan is too nice. So that's somebody, you know, worked for him, is a fan of the team, is like, I think he's too nice to get it right. And I think if the Jags, if Khan can hire the correct head coach, I feel like that's a good place to be. I think there will be loyalty there if you prove like you can win. I think like it's not the worst situation to be in right now with Trevor Lawrence. So they just got to nail it. And I think it becomes very hard to nail that with Trent Baalke there. And that's the issue.
Because are you going like that? I think that's a really great question. And again, we are only hearing what we hear, right? Yeah. I've read a lot of reports, my friend. And again, not inside the building, that people are not going to want to go to Jacksonville because of Trent Baalke.
Sure.
And like, that is a huge problem when you have what you just paid your franchise quarterback $55 million a year.
Yeah.
You need to, there's a window. You need to start winning some games. The defense was atrocious. It was like the worst defense in the freaking league. Like it's a problem right now for the Jaguars, and any head coach that comes in they can only do so much if the roster building's not there. And again, like Brian Thomas Jr., phenomenal pick, right? Could be considered for offensive rookie of the year. But at the same time, anything that is going to potentially dampen the candidates you're going to bring in or inhibit your search, you're just not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we're at a point too where we're asking the same question about the Bears, right? Do they have the right GM in place?
They don't have the right
And
ownership in place. That's the problem.
well, we know that. What was the dumb fucking quote McCaskey had yesterday that was going
about
around Twitter?
the relationship between the GM and the head coach, and it was a matter like their contracts of like lining up and making sure like, oh, does it matter that they're basically in sync with one another in terms of their deals? Like the GM could get fired. Like now they're rocking with polls, right?
Yeah.
So the Bears need to nail this, but their GM is in the same exact situation Eberflus was just in, which has been the same situations that previous GMs and head coaches have been in.
Yeah.
And it just feels like we're doing this over and over and over again. And this is one of the things I know Colts fans and Dolphins fans and Giants fans, maybe not as many Giants fans, but there's like some, we didn't move on from either our GM or our head coach. I think look at the Titans, for example. The Titans moving on from their GM, and now they have a head coach with there's still plenty of question marks. That is sometimes not the best move at all, because if you are bringing someone in and there's still a hot seat for a head coach or a GM, dude, like, their chemistry, their ability to work with one another, like that matters. And if a GM did not hire that head coach, or a GM or a head coach, is getting a brand new GM, they're going to want to do things certain ways. Yeah, it's tough, dude. That's, you're putting yourself in a situation that could blow up in your face. And for the Bears, like they've seen this a gajillion times, they just need to nail this head coaching hire. And even then, they also need to nail their draft. And Ryan Poles, I think, is still going to be on a hot seat.
The Bears the dealer keeps showing 18. They're sitting at 17. They keep hitting and they keep busting. Busting. I think they need kind of a hard ass head coach. I think Vrabel makes sense for the Bears and the Jags. Obviously, there's the connections, to the Patriots, but I would like to see him go somewhere else. I think he would be the right choice for Chicago, but I want to put him in Jacksonville. I want to save Jacksonville.